We're going to move on 2 short sessions to finish us off. We're going to finish with our Changemaker Award. More of that in a moment. Before then, it's a great pleasure to welcome to the stage Chief Secretary to the Treasury, the Right Honourable Elizabeth Truss MP. She's described herself this morning at the Millicent Fawcett statue launch, which we heard a little bit about earlier from one of our speakers, but she's described herself as a member of the Millicent tendency. To tell us more, please do welcome Liz Truss.
Well, thank you very much, Michael, and it's great to be here today. There are lots of people who would say about Britain that we're a nation in decline, that we like to look backwards at the days of triple-decker buses and top hats. But I don't think this is true at all. I would describe us as a lean-in nation, a nation that actually wants to see new things and embraces change. And in fact, there was a Ipsos Mori poll that came out recently that showed of 23 leading nations in the world, Britons were the least likely to say that the world is changing too fast. And I think that is exciting. I don't like every new product that's produced on the market. I prefer a traditional beef burger to a beetroot burger. But I do like a country where you can see lots of new things happening, lots of new industries emerging. I think it's a symbol of freedom. And there's also a narrative that's been running that we've got a group of young people who are crypto-Marxists, who want to live in a commune, who reject the capitalist society. Again, I don't think that is true at all. I describe young people as Uber riding, Deliveroo eating, Airbnb staying freedom fighters, because those young people have experienced more freedom, more ability to communicate with people across the world, to post pictures of themselves on the internet, to go to new places, to do new things and say new things than any other generation previous to them. And they've had an unprecedented opportunity to acquire new goods, whether it's avocados or avatars. And what we also know is that they're more likely to start their own businesses. They're all more likely to say that they want to shape their own lives. And they believe in people taking individual responsibility for their destiny. So isn't it surprising when we are in this go-getting country that loves change, and when we've got this generation that are the most freedom-loving that we've ever known, that we're told in Britain there is an anti-capitalist mood? And I think part of the issue is that the dynamism that we see around us, whether we're here in Bloomberg, whether we're looking at what's happening with new companies emerging, we haven't necessarily linked that in people's mind to capitalism and how capitalism works, because it is a dynamic system that gets rid of old ideas, takes up new ideas, and moves the world forward. And it uses the energy of people that are mavericks, people who are insurgents, people who've got something new to say and something different to say to power that. I would describe capitalism as an engine of choice and an engine of change. And all of the things that we've achieved, all of those new goods and services, they haven't emerged out of state planning. They've emerged because people have come up with new ideas. The idea for LinkedIn, or the idea of spreading your avocado on toast, that was not invented by officials in Whitehall. And can you imagine what would happen if we adopted that model more widely across the economy? Now, there is a lot of talk that we have monopolistic tendencies growing in some of the areas of the new economy, and people talk about what happened in the early 1920s in America and how President Roosevelt and the Supreme Court decided to split up Standard Oil and split up those monopolies. But I think we've got to look on the other side of the coin, and the fact that those companies are moving in and out of the market faster than they ever have before. So if we look at the FTSE 100, which was established in 1984, just 28 of the original companies remain. And there was a recent InnoSight report showing that half of the S&P 500 are unlikely to be there in a decade. What we are seeing is capitalism working. We're seeing old ideas dying and new ideas emerging. Now, can you imagine if we were sitting here today and we all had our BlackBerries and Nokias, and we were all clicking away at the tiny keyboards, looking at the tiny screens, maximum of 10 texts saved in our memories, and that's all we'd be able to do. And if it wasn't for capitalism, and it wasn't for the profit motive, the new smartphones wouldn't have been invented, because nobody would be thinking of how do I come up with the new ideas to do that. And also, you wouldn't have been able to see my Instagram account with me on a zip wire either, so you'd be hugely missing out. But the biggest problem I think we've got is not the dynamism that we're seeing. It's the people who want to stop progress. It's the people who say, stop the world, I want to get off. And I admit sometimes I can be in that category when I go to the cinema and I see there's some new film on. I might rather watch a rerun of Dirty Dancing or Pulp Fiction and go home and ignore what's happening. But I shouldn't have the ability to impose my preferences. And the great thing about the market economy is it allows people to vote with their feet. And quite often, the people who want to stop progress are people with a vested interest in the status quo. It's the incumbents, or it's people who are afraid of risk, afraid of new things, and end up holding other people back. And I think we need to take on this blob of vested interests. I think we need to do things differently, and we need to allow the insurgents to succeed. So how can we do that? Well, one thing the government has done is we've opened up the banking market. We've enabled new challenger banks to take on those big incumbents. Wouldn't it be good if we did that in areas like utilities as well? We've also got to reform our planning system. We're already working on that, because at the moment, if you own a house, you're doing pretty well, your value is rising. But if you're a young person who wants to get on the housing ladder, it's difficult. And there are a lot of NIMBYs who want to stop that. We also have to make sure that Britain is open to the brightest and the best from around the world, whether that's people or whether it's ideas. Because a country that is open to people, that's open to new ideas, is a country that's going to achieve that change and keep succeeding. And we also need to be open to the new economy. There are some people who want to close down Uber, or they want to close down Airbnb, or they say, cryptocurrencies, we don't want to touch that with a barge pole. Well, I say, of course we need proper regulation, but let's look at the potential of these ideas. Let's be the country in the world that's open to those new ideas. That is what is exciting. And I go around the country and I see fantastic businesses like Ultra Haptics in Bristol, which is producing a way that you can feel things in midair. I could describe it like that. But that is the future of virtual reality. You've got companies like Blipar that are world leading in face recognition. You've got companies like True Potential in Newcastle that are using blockchain as part of fintech. This is what Britain is good at, and this is where the excitement is in Britain. And a couple of weeks ago, I was in Chile and Brazil. And I saw countries, particularly Brazil, which was previously a closed economy, saying, we recognize not being open to the rest of the world hasn't worked for us. We want to open up, we want to attract investment, we want to attract the brightest and the best. Likewise, Chile has a visa scheme for top startups. And we need to make sure that we keep ahead of the game, that we keep looking at how we can reinvent ourselves. Otherwise, we're going to find there's somebody more exciting, better and brighter trying to take our place as one of the world's leading countries in this area. Finally, we're 10 years on for the economic crash. We can all remember when we saw the bankers taking their boxes of possessions out of Lehman Brothers, and we saw the worry in people's faces as they lined up in queues outside banks. And we have turned our economy around. We're now in a position where we've got a record number of startups. Our employment is at record levels. We're seeing productivity and real wages starting to increase. And we've got to be clear, the reason we've been successful is we've made it easier to start up a business. We've made it easier to take on people. We've made it an enterprise country. and it's enterprise that's driven our success. And in order to stay ahead, we do need to take risks. We do need to challenge the incumbents and enable the new entrants to enter the market. But most of all, I think as a country, we need to be champions of change. Thank you.